With midterm elections approaching, a group of Americans are demanding their right to cast a ballot. Advocates for the disabled say thousands of people with autism spectrum disorder and other developmental disabilities are systematically losing their right to vote in Los Angeles County. They filed a Voting Rights Act complaint with the U.S. Justice Department. At issue is the question of where to draw the line to disqualify an individual from voting because of his or her developmental disability. Thomas F. Coleman is the legal director of the Disability and Abuse Project. His organization filed the complaint, and he joins us now from Studio City, California. Thomas, welcome to Arise America. Thanks for being here with us.
Oh, thank you for having me on the show.
So tell me, what are the prevailing arguments? And I understand it's different from state to state. Voting is in many ways a state's issue. But what is the prevailing argument for preventing those with developmental disabilities from being able to vote?
Well, actually, it does vary from state to state because there are more than a dozen states that have no restrictions whatsoever. So people with developmental disabilities have the right to vote for president or governor or anybody in those jurisdictions. Then there are some states that say if you have if you're an adult and you have a guardian appointed, or in California it's called a conservator, those states say you're automatically disqualified. Then there's a bunch of states in the middle, and that's where California is. And these states set up a test to determine whether they feel that you have the capacity to vote or not. And so, like in California, well, you asked me, what are the arguments? Mm-hmm. The arguments against allowing people with developmental disabilities to vote, I guess, the premise is that voting should be based on a rational choice, or it should be based on somebody who can engage in sound reasoning. I can't think of what other argument there would be for that.
Well, let me just jump in there, Tom. Excuse me for interrupting you. But let me just ask you, first of all, how wide-reaching is this in terms of how many people with developmental disabilities are disallowed from voting?
Okay, I did a sample of cases in LA County, and in the chunk of cases that I examined, 90% of the people were losing their right to vote. And in LA County, the court processes, every year they process 1,200 new cases. And that's 25% of the cases of the state. So we have possibly over 4,000 per year that are losing the right to vote in California. And you look over a span of 10 years and you could be talking about 40,000 people or more. So it's a very large number. But even if it was only 5 or 10 people, the right to vote is an individual right, and it shouldn't be denied. Obviously, the magnitude of the numbers does make it a more serious problem for society.
Do you believe that there is a line, though, that there are certain developmental disorders that should cause an individual to be restricted from voting?
If somebody is in a coma, they should be restricted from voting. But if the person can communicate, in whatever their method of communication is, if they express a desire to vote, they should be allowed to register to vote and vote. And I say this because when a person turns 18, everybody is presumed to have the right to vote. And they do have the right to vote until it's taken away. Now, when somebody in their 20s or 30s could say, without a disability, could say, I just don't like the way that person looks. I don't want to see their face on TV for the next 4 years, so I'm voting for the other candidate. Or they could say, my pastor, I always do what my pastor tells me how to vote. So, people do it for emotional reasons, people vote for religious reasons, people vote for arbitrary reasons, or sometimes they surrender the decision to somebody else. For example, one spouse may say, these judges and all of that, I don't know what's going on with judicial elections. I just had my husband fill it out, and I turned the ballot in, so I let him do that for me. So if people without disabilities can make decisions for irrational reasons or delegate them to somebody else, then why should people with someone with a disability not be treated the same and be able to vote or not vote, or make decisions for arbitrary reasons or because their pastor told them to do it?
Voting is a very fundamental part of our democracy. Thomas Coleman, thank you so much. Nice to talk to you.
Okay, thank you very much.